Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence, and today I want to talk to you about how there's this idea going around that music is getting worse, and it's been, a thing for the past probably 30, 40, 50 years. It's probably been going on since the dawn of time, to be honest. People going, oh yeah, this music's not as good as the music that I listened to when I was a kid, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to make this video to talk about the 2010s as an era of music, because I think the 2010s was actually the best decade for music that we may have ever had. And the 2020s looks to be on track to surpass it. So I've made this playlist, which is essentially just shouting out a few various albums from small and large bands and artists that I think are amazing and to me hold up with some of the classics. Okay, so we're going to start off with an album called Airbag, All Rights Removed. Now I'm not going to be playing any of these songs, so I'm just going to sit here and actually talk about them. What I'll do, I will mute that, and I'm going to mute this. There you are. So everything's been muted. You can't actually hear anything. So this is just the album art that you can see now. I really like the album art. I must have downloaded it at some point in 2019. I remember we lost the internet for about a month. We didn't have any internet for about a month, and so I was kind of just, scrolling through all of my folders, sort of like this, just like, oh no, I must have something in here. I must have something. Oh God. Trying to find just anything. Just trying to find some music, some files and stuff. I mean, look, I've got DVDs, but I don't want to watch Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa for the rest of my fucking life, okay? As much as I like that film, I need some other stuff. So I was looking around, and I was searching high and low, and I found this album, and I must have downloaded it at some point, just, YouTube to MP3 sort of thing. So it's quite a low quality render of the album. I listened to it in full, and it's very much reminiscent of David Gilmour era Pink Floyd. Think the Division Bell, but expanded into a more modern context with a fresh band. Also imagine that all the Pink Floyd are Norwegian. So Airbag are a bit of a progressive rock sort of outfit. I think there's three of them. I think there's three members of the band. I think there's a guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer. Very simple sort of thing like that. And so I'm listening to this album through, and it's a really nice album. It starts off with a bit of what felt like a bit of a Porcupine Tree, Fear of a Blank Planet kind of thing with the title track that kicks it off. Then there's a smaller track I can't remember much of, and then there's a track that's about 9 minutes long that has some really soaring guitar solos in it, and some really sweet and beautiful melodies with the vocals. Then it sort of sombers down into some piano-y kind of things, and then there's a track that, Light 'Em All Up, which is I think I like to equate this album almost to Meddle from Pink Floyd, because I feel like it follows a similar sort of structure. All Rights Removed is a bit of a heavier kind of track, similar to One of These Days. White Wall feels like a bit of a somber-y kind of track. Then the bridge, I guess, is their version of Fearless. But then Never Coming Home is just like, imagine you had Metal Beat chucked comfortably numb on it, right? Then Light 'Em All Up is like their version of, I don't know, this is a stupid comparison, right? But then you get to Homesick, and Homesick is actually one of the most beautiful songs that ever came out. I was liking the album, I was enjoying the album, but it wasn't like my favourite thing up to that point. But when I heard Homesick 1 through 3 for the first time, my mind, honestly, just, I had no idea how to comprehend how the music could be so perfect. Every note, every line, every passage, every movement of this song is perfectly designed and perfectly executed. And it's by the name, 1 through 3. There are 3 main parts to the song, each about 6-7 minutes. So you start off with this acousticy kind of ballad thing that soars into a guitar solo, that then goes into this atmospheric, drony kind of soundscape that slowly brings in this kind of funky boom, 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 sort of bass line that then they do a bit of like Moog synthesizer or something like that. They have some synths and some pads and some keys coming in to fill out this sonic soundscape. And then it really dies down for, I don't know, it's sort of an organ but a pad kind of thing. Kind of that, right? And then it goes into a really intense crescendo that then slowly brings it back down. Think of sort of the end of Shine You Crazy Diamond, the part 6 through 9. You know how it, although that's a little bit more saxophone induced and a bit more urban feeling. Imagine that, but sort of a more naturalistic, in the middle of the woods kind of thing. I'm using images and ideas to explain the music rather than any particular music theory, because I'm not any kind of music theory expert. I can say a couple bits, but I think what's more important about music is how it makes you feel. And to me, the album as a whole makes me feel like I'm at the edge of a pier on a foggy sort of blue sort of day, but it's not that cold out. I need a jumper, but I don't need a jacket. And I'm sitting kind of like that, leaning like that, looking out over the sea, being able to only maybe view like 300 meters in front of me because the fog is so thick. And you can sort of just trying to make out little ships in the distance. You think you can see a couple lights, but you can't really verify it. And then you go and you find a small little cafe back further down the pier, and you get maybe a cappuccino, and it comes in a mug that's not actually that impressive. So you got kind of ripped off, but you're in a touristy area anyway, so don't know what you were expecting. And then you got maybe a sandwich with it as well, and you're just sitting there munching on that, drinking your coffee, reading a book. This isn't a book, obviously, but just pretending to read a book. And this will be playing on the little tinny speakers that they have for the little cafe. So that's kind of my interpretation of this album, how I view it. I really love this album. It's really stuck with me. I've listened to it probably 10 times, but not much recently. Then you've got just totally shifting gears from really soft, somber Pink Floyd-y kind of stuff to thrash, progressive metal, sort of very Tool adjacent kind of album. I think I can play bits of this actually, because they've got a bootlegger program, so I can kind of get away with it. So we're going to play a little bit of it. I think it's That's enough of that. So that's an album that I really, really like. It came out at a really annoying time in my life, like a time that I just wasn't having much fun. So this album really helped me out actually, and I listened to it again and again and again and again. The studio version is amazing as well. I've just brought up this live version for the sake of just, it's nice to have live versions, and if there is a live version of something, I like to seek that out. I think my favourite track on it is Flamethrower, but on the studio version they have this bit at the end, this very elongated progressive metal kind of jam that slowly evolves from metally chugging riffing guitars to synthesizers, and it does a really smooth transition to it, and it manages to keep all the heaviness and keep the crescendo going and going and going and going, and it does an amazing job at that. And I really wish there was just more of that throughout the whole album, and I feel like at some point they're probably going to do an album where they do something like that. Dragon, an amazing progressive metal song that starts off very thrashy and then gets into its very syncopated, weird time signature, almost polymeter kind of section around the 6-minute mark, with loads of little riffs and interludes and small bits with crescendos leading you up and then pulling you back down with riffing breakdowns, and there's so much to explore within that 1 10-minute song. There's so much going on there. And then right before that you got Gila Monster, which I think is their version of just a straight banger for the album. It was the first single that they released with a big music video and all this kind of stuff. And then Dragon was the second single and music video, which I think was to sort of show this is what the album is capable of doing. And Gila Monster was kind of a introduction to what the ideas of it were. Then you've got Witchcraft. I don't know why I'm going backwards, but Witchcraft is such an amazing song because of how it I don't have a guitar to hand, but that riff I think is really, really memorable, even though it's quite complex. And that kind of goes through my head quite a lot as I'm just walking around. And it's also got really syncopated, not syncopated, really weird drums that technically follow a different pattern and rhythm to the guitar, so it gives you this really fucky effect. I can show you a bit actually. I'm allowed to. So it's coming. All right, yeah, I know, I get the point. It's really, those two things shouldn't go together, but King Gizzard managed to make them go together, and I don't know how they do it. And finally, like Supercell's really good song, Converge is a really good song, but I just want to move through because we've got quite a few albums to actually cover, and we're 10 minutes into the video already. Motor Spirit, I think, was just an amazing introduction. It starts with this little medley of riffs that kind of, and things that, solos and little pieces and ideas that appear throughout the rest of the album, that you kind of get this big medley of them right at the start, which is just the album introducing you to the concepts that it's able to get across. And I think, one, the lyrics are really good. They kind of slip into this old-timey vine, my fine fucking oil, blah, 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 blah. The way that they kind of do the lyrics is really fun. It's like, they're obviously a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but they're doing it in a like, they're giving it their all, and they're having fun with it. And that's why I like the band in general, to be honest, because they just seem like a load of guys that are getting together to be creative and have some fun with it. And they have a lot of fun with it, it seems. Now, this next band is called Karkara. They're a very psych rock kind of / krautrock a little bit sort of outfit from France. I've seen them live. I saw them at the Strong Arms in May. Yeah, keep that in the video, mate. It's coughing and spluttered all over the place. It's a really good album. My favourite track from it is Anthropia. The Chase is also really good as well. What I find that this band does really well is its driving drum grooves and the way that they manage to make these huge walls of noise from these riffing guitars with extreme wah-wah just going absolutely crazy all over the place. The wah goes wah, wah, wah. Everything's all going on at the same time, and they manage to all make it work together. It's like a kraken being kept in a little tiny box. And I love that. It's so much fun, this album. It's really satisfying gym music. If you're on the treadmill to Anthropia, you're going at like 15 kilometers an hour, and you look down and you see that it's going that fast, and you're like, hang on, I don't normally go that fast. Let me turn that down. You turn it down to about 9 kilometers an hour, and you think, hang on, wow, this doesn't feel right, and you whack it back up, and then you realise after the song's finished, you're actually doused in sweat. It's an amazing album through and through. Their other albums are quite good too, and they're slowly getting larger and larger as well. So they're getting a few that have like 60,000 views, and I'd love to see this band actually blow up. I really, really would, because I think they've got something really special going on. They've been doing this for a few years now, and I think it's time that they get the accreditation that they deserve. Oh yeah, right. There we are. Next up is another small band called Fish Basket. These guys are, I think they're Polish, a Polish band, and they've got one major album, but lately they've also started messing around with these live jam session kind of things. So if I go on their channel, which I think I'm subscribed to. Oh, God's sake, band. If I find the band, yeah, here we are. Really small, even smaller than Karkara. I find it weird actually that I'm technically more popular than this band. I don't like that. I really don't like that, because these guys are fucking amazing. Like, honestly, if you listen to Rainfall, this version, live at release party, and tell me that it's not one of the best post-rock songs ever, and tell me that this band doesn't deserve to be said in the same name as Explosions in the Sky, Godspeed You Black Emperor, and Low, and all of these other bands that just do such an amazing job of taking I think they're three guys, right? Bassist, guitarist, and drummer. And tell me that they don't manage to make some of the most beautiful, searing soundscapes out of just bass, guitar, and drums. And, you know, obviously the guitar has a lot of, like, various effects and delays and stuff on it, and obviously they're extremely skilled musicians, and that's how they're able to do this. But honestly, I think they really deserve to get more than 200 views, 200 views, 200 views, 100 views, 200 views, 100 views. You know, I think they deserve something proper, because I first found them from this song, Fata Morgana. it wasn't this version. I found the studio version, but it's got this really fucky bit where it kind of goes, and it sort of fucks you up a little bit. I don't think it's technically in 4/4. I think it actually goes into 5/4 for a little bit, and then it whacks it back into 4/4, which makes it feel a lot more intense and in the moment. Fish Basket, if you do see this video, let me know how you actually managed to make that bit happen. I suspect it's a time signature thing, but it might not be. It might be like a polyrhythm kind of thing. But whatever it is, it felt like there was some kind of mad bit of music theory that was going on there. But yeah, I really want to see these guys get bigger and larger because they're just amazing. I don't understand why YouTube recommends my own videos to me. I don't get it. Anyway, where was I? I keep getting away from the playlist. I need the playlist back. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. So those three are actually all albums that came out in the 2020s, and that's why I was saying that the 2020s feels like it's getting better, and it might even surpass the 2010s, because I think why these decades are doing so well is the underground is a lot more exposed to the light. What was previously underground for big, load of dirt on top of it, now there's like cracks in the dirt, which is the algorithm essentially giving some of these things a boost. It's like the reason that this got 23,000 views, and the reason that I found out about Karkara is because via the algorithm, it probably took you from like a King Gizzard or a VOC sort of song, and then that was in the corner of Karkara, and you saw the thumbnail and you thought, oh, that looks a little bit interesting. And loads of other people thought the same sort of way because it's designed to be part of that community, and obviously Karkara haven't based their sound around pulling in people from that that audience and that sphere, but they just naturally have. And because they've done that and they've found something, I'm just checking, I'm still recording, and because they have managed to do that, they've been able to develop and carve a space out for themselves and create their own sound out of that and their own image and identity, which then gets remembered by the population that see their videos and so on. So I think because you have these algorithms and this internet sharing platform thing, it allows so many more small-scale creators to grow in popularity in a way that they wouldn't have been able to before. I think if this band was around in the 1980s, they would have had a 4-track recorder, they would have made a couple cassette tapes that maybe would have been passed around the local pubs or cafes or whatever France has. And they would have probably gotten a few live shows. They probably would have done a couple live shows like that and then probably stopped after a couple years, after maybe doing 2 tapes. But with this, they're able to develop an audience and a interpersonal connection, parasocial relationship with the audience, which I just think is really cool. Like, look at this. All is dust. And then they respond with odd is lust, which I just feel like they're able to just heart and actually directly interact with random fans on the other side of the world, which you're not normally able to do if there isn't an internet around. Yeah, I could see Hawkwind. I could see Hawkwind. Yeah. They compared it to Hawkwind. I could see that. So now we're going to go back in time a little bit to 2015. If you've probably heard of this band, 2814. It's a ambient, vaporwave, adjacent kind of synth thing. So it's technically a supergroup from HKE and Telepath, who are 2 other really good musicians in this ambient, vaporwavy kind of sphere. And you get a lot of these album arts that are kind of like random towns in Tokyo or China or places like that. They're very urban feeling, futuristic kind of vibes that go on with like, look at this. It's all reflections in windows. It's blues, it's reds, it's purples. I think this is the best example. This album, definitely an album that also had an impact on me. It was certainly an album that I listened to quite a bit, but I listened to this via finding out about both of these artists from 2814 and this album in particular. The first track has this it doesn't descend that much in terms of the melody, but it's the delay of the piano is just like nothing I've ever heard before or since, and it really did a number on me. And the soundscapes that I know I'm saying soundscapes a lot, but this is very soundscape material. This is very much put the headphones on and go to another world. Well, the same world, but the other side of the planet, I suppose. And what I find so beautiful about this band is the way that they're able to combine ambience with a little bit of beat, so that even though there's stuff going on, there might be drums, there might be things like this happening, and it's making enough of an impact in your mind to make you focus on the music, but not enough of an impact on your mind that you can't relax and just let the music wash through your body. So I think it does it sort of sits on the fence between ambience and non-ambience, and I think it's a very nice fence. It's certainly a beautiful picket fence. Their other album, which I don't seem to have to hand, what was it called again? It was 2814. I can't remember what the other album was called, but it was. I actually semi-like that other album more. Rain Temple, that's it. Both of these albums are absolutely beautiful. I think you need both of them together. And they've done a couple more projects, but I get the sense that 2814 is kind of over to a degree. I also feel like the general zeitgeist has moved past the sound a little bit, because it comes from a time of not these artists in particular, but the vaporwave thing was a lot of squelchy kind of synths and reminiscing back to 80s sort of nostalgia, and I feel like we're moving past that towards 90s nostalgia with stuff like the new Charlie XCX and was it Sabrina Carpenter that did the album, which is all kind of callbacks to and reinterpretations of 80s and 90s classic pop songs. I can't remember. Anyway. Similar in vibe and sound is Banshee, but obviously this, instead of it being about ambience, this is more about experimentation with sound and sampling and so on. And I think they do a really beautiful job, particularly the track Venus Flytrap. I mean, this is as vaporwave as it gets, really. And Banshee have continued up until this day. I don't know if they're still going. They're still making stuff. And, well, that's a cool album art. That as an album art implies to me that they're doing something different. Let's see. Let's see if they're doing something different. They sound like they are. It's still got the intensity and the in-your-face aspect to it, but it feels a little bit laid back, a little bit more mellow and somber. Compared to, say, Venus Flytrap, which as a song, I really like. It's really, really fucky. That's as much as I think I can play for you. I recommend not treating these as series of 2-minute tracks. I see it as their albums are more like one 30-minute song that ebbs and flows between things, and I feel like there's times when, like, the pacing on their albums is always perfect. It's absolutely sublime. And I feel like as well, what really works for them is they kind of call back to previous things, and it feels like quite a holistic experience listening to one of their albums. Mega as well is a really good album. Yeah, Mega. I remember them spending quite a long time on that. That was a big release when that came out. Next up, we're going to go away from bigger artists, because how many did that have? That had like 4 million or something, right? Yeah, 4 million. We're going to strip back down both sonically and in popularity to a band called, or an artist called Kitchen, with their album Breathe Too Long, or Breath Too Long. This is an incredibly lo-fi, acoustic, folky kind of album. I don't quite know how to explain it, other than I just really recommend you go and check it out. It's very almost ambient. Imagine almost an acoustic version of 2814, but mix that with a bit of Nick Drake and a bit of Bob Dylan, is how I see this album. Particularly, there's a 9-minute track that's kind of in the middle that he doesn't. There's someone here. Oh yeah, there they are. Oh, I did it. Yeah, I did it. I like the album so much that I put the track list in. Kate was in the back seat. that is quite a long track that has like 3 minutes of windy sort of ambience at the end. But it sort of gets into mini guitar solos, and it really reminds me of stuff like Low, particularly the song. What's the main Low song? Lullaby. I think it's Lullaby. Yeah, it really reminded me of Lullaby with its slow introduction that progresses and crescendos into a soaring guitar solo, but all soaring by their standards. Which, you know, I feel like, you know, take a bloody John Petrucci kind of solo and put it on this, it wouldn't really work. But it's all, but so you know, you don't have that overdrive or anything like that. You've got the clean sort of twanginess to it, and it's just seeing the experimentation going from quarter notes to eighth notes to 16th notes. It's a really satisfying development, and I really recommend this album. It's so incredibly lo-fi, it's so incredibly somber and sweet, and the songs really melt from one to the other. I'm trying to remember what song was my favourite. I think it was Halloween in August was my favourite one. That's a really good one. I really just like the titles as well, like Christmas 2020. Quarter 2 is brilliant. Halloween in August as well. Like the titles are really interesting, and this album as a whole is just beautiful. I really recommend you give it a listen, and I really can't wait for Kitchen to make something else. They made an EP before, and I've not really checked out the EP. I've not really checked out any of this stuff. But maybe give it a look. Maybe check out Exposed! Hidden Satanic Messages in Animal Collective's music. Because, you know what? If there's hidden satanic messages in Animal Collective's music, it wouldn't surprise me. It's going cold. So we're going to sort of get away through this. Because we're nearly half an hour in, and I'm not even halfway through this. I based and ordered this semi off of. I wanted bands that are newer to be closer to the top, but I didn't completely do that. Because I wanted this to be about artists can still pop off now, artists can still do well now. And, you know, Black Midi, I would have put Black Midi in here, but they don't resonate with me personally. It's not that I dislike them or don't respect what they're doing. They just don't quite hit it for me, but they're an amazing band that ought to be on this playlist as well. But for now, I'm just going to talk about Infected Mushroom, who are an outfit that started in 1999. They're an Israeli duo of psytrance, electronica, kind of EDM slash sort of. I don't know the terms because this is my main foray into this world of music. And this album in particular, I think, is them just. It's called Return to the Source. It's them stripping things back to their basic roots. They'd done a few albums that, like a couple of years prior to this, they did an album that was following along with the dubstep trend that was going on. I quite like that album, but it's got The Rat on it, it's got The Messenger 2012 on it, it's got a couple others on it that I really like. It has got You Are So Fucked, which is a really terrible song. Which maybe is why that album got kind of a negative reception just based on that song. Then they did Converting Vegetarians 2, which I don't really see how it relates to Converting Vegetarians 1, because Converting Vegetarians 1 was quite an experimental album, and Converting Vegetarians 2 is much of a chill electronica sort of thing that has a song on it called Pink Floyd, which is really, really good. It's taking the Comfortably Numb sort of Division Bell era of Pink Floyd and introducing EDM, psytrance aspects to it, and it does a beautiful job of that. Like, that might sound a little bit shit when I say it out loud, but it really works. And so this album, it kicks off with this guitar flamenco-y kind, not flamenco, but ethnic kind of sounding down, 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 wow. It sounds a little bit like it could be played on a baglamar. So I really love this album. Manipulator has a beautiful payoff towards the end in the last 2 minutes. Return to the Source is just a straight like slapper of a song. Groove Attack is kind of alright. Gravity Waves, Demons of Pain. I'm trying to find Milos. There it is. Milos is a really good song. Around the 6 minute mark, there's a drop breakdown sort of thing that just goes. It's ridiculous because it's got this really long soaring riser that just works so beautifully, so perfectly. And then Nutmeg is another really good song that has this really like clackety kind of koto almost sound to it. Yeah, I can't recommend this album enough. If you don't really know much about EDM or like that sound of electronica and you don't want to explore that sound too much, let me just recommend that you listen to, I'd say Flamingo would be a good start, or Return to the Source, or actually what you should listen to is The Messenger, the original, but that's not going to be on this playlist because that came out in I think 2001. Next, we're going to just change gears again completely from EDM to now political conscious hip-hop. Loki, Soundtrack to the Struggle 2. This is an album that follows up his 2009 or 2010 album, Soundtrack to the Struggle. Loki was an artist who started off in about 2003 or 4 with a few mixtapes, a few EPs and stuff like that. And then he started getting into proper albums. He did a semi-band sort of rock rap thing. Oh, for God's sake, hang on. Sorry. I will be back with you in a second. We're back. Sorry about that. So yeah, he started off in 2004. When 2010 he came out of Soundtrack to the Struggle, which is his main introductory album. He had one before called Dear Listener, but it didn't. I don't think it did quite the same numbers. I think Soundtrack to the Struggle is the thing that really put him on the map and made him well and truly respected in the field. And then what he did, which was I really respect him for it, is he got super popular and then he just fucked off and he did like charity work and he studied, and for the next sort of 8 years he kept himself outside of the music rapping thing. He didn't just dedicate his life to rap, he dedicated his life to actually trying to help people. And so he practiced what he preached, and you know, he went out there and actually helped people. And I thought that was beautiful. And he came back in 2019 with a sequel to his albums with Soundtrack to the Struggle 2, which I found quite difficult to get into at first. I didn't really resonate with it, but as I've had time to sink my teeth into it, I have to almost say that I prefer Soundtrack to the Struggle 2 to Soundtrack to the Struggle 1. It's got a lot of longer songs, so there's a lot more 5, 6, 7 minute songs to this. His flow and his ability to come up with new flows and rap fast and things like that, his technical ability has really improved. I feel like the beats are more interesting because they're using more real instruments. There's a lot more proper drumming and guitar and stuff like that. So if I actually look up Loki BBC Live, something like that, it should come up with, yeah, the Death of Neoliberalism does a really good job. I want to, like, Ghost to Grenfell is one of the most beautiful songs that has ever been made, and I lived quite near Grenfell when Grenfell sort of thing happened, and yeah, it was really made an impact on me because I didn't know quite how to process what was going on with it, and so listening to that song, because I remember I just sort of, I felt like I didn't care about the situation, even though I lived near it. It's like I sort of shut it out of my brain. And so listening to this song is what really got me to think about it and the people that were involved and the people who lost their lives. And it really upset me. And I didn't, and so I revisit the song whenever I feel like I need to remember the people that sort of lost their lives in that traumatic incident that Theresa May kind of fucked up. Yeah. So as an album, this album really speaks to me. I feel like it's a bit over long. It's 90 minutes. I feel like it could probably be about 60 minutes and still deliver the same sort of thing. Like, I'm trying to think of songs. I'm not too keen on Children of Diaspora, sorry. Not too keen on Long Live Palestine Free. Not because I don't agree with the message or anything like that. I just think the beat is a bit crap. Didn't quite like Lords of War. And I didn't really like Neoliberalism Kills People, but I like everything else. Also the skits. I don't really understand the point of skits on albums, like rap albums. They all seem to have skits, and I just don't get it. I always skip them. Do people actually sit and listen to them all the time? Like, does anyone actually sit down and think, oh, I want to listen to some Loki, I'm going to listen to skit 4? No. Or at least I don't. He came out with another album, Soundtrack to the Struggle 3. It's a lot shorter, it's 45 minutes or something like that. And I don't know, I tried, and I think it's the same thing that happened when Soundtrack to the Struggle 2 came out, is I listened to it and nothing really resonated with me. But I think in a few years I'm going to revisit Soundtrack to the Struggle 3 and decide that that's the best one. I don't know though. I felt like the production on number 3 was a little bit one note. It felt like it was doing the slow thing way too much. I thought the Soundtrack to the Struggle 2 does the slow thing too much, but it's got like the Death and Neoliberalism and Return to Loki, which are a bit faster, banger kind of songs. Also, goes to the Grenfell 2. Didn't quite get why it needed 2 songs for the situation, especially because the first one is so beautiful. The live version in particular. Yeah. Moving on to more political hip hop. Akala, the Thieves Banquet, which has a song on it called Manangamizi, which I'm not really going to talk too much about because I feel like it's not necessarily even my place to really discuss it, because it's generally about the Black African Holocaust. Yeah, very, very thick, heavy topics that get covered throughout this entire album. And Akala does such an amazing job of enunciating his point and getting across what he has to say, and doing it in a way that is, 1, entertaining, and 2, insightful and inspiring and educational. So yeah, these got songs like the Thieves Banquet 2, which I couldn't quite get into the Thieves Banquet Part 1, but Part 2 is really fun, and it sort of tells the story of how the evilest people in the world win, essentially. You've got Let It All Happen, which is almost just like giving up a little bit, because everything is really getting on top of you and the world is so miserable and that kind of thing. Old Soul, which is another really beautiful song, just about, I don't know, the past and feeling like you're connected with the past. It's almost like the Johnny Mozza anthem, essentially, because it's essentially his attitude towards the past, but done in a positive way, because it's more about respecting the past than prioritizing it over the present. One More Breath is quite a heavier song. It's certainly the heaviest song on the album, I'd say. And then Another Reason. And I'm just kind of naming random songs now, so I'm going to move on to Run the Jewels 4. So we're staying in the rap lane a little bit. This is an album that I don't actually know the songs necessarily, because what I tend to do, right? If I find a song I really like, I go and YouTube to MP3 and I just download them. So I download them like this. So I've got Iron Maiden, I've got The Infected Mushroom, I've got Neil Young, I've got Asia, the debut, which I didn't really like, bit of Dream Theater, Kendrick Lamar, David Bowie, Nick Drake, stuff like that, right? Dead Prez. And I just download them on here, but it doesn't have like tracks or anything like that. So I don't know what songs are what. I just listen to it as a kind of holistic, experience. And it's good because if you go to the gym, you tend to work out for about 40 minutes. And an album tends to go on for about 40 minutes, so that kind of works itself out. This album really, really works for that. Particularly the last track on it, A Few Words for the Firing Squad. Really love that song. It's got this really simple dun 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 sort of progression to it that they managed to rap over and turn into a really fun thing. There's the song Just, I think, is the one that has the verse, the line, "Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar," which really good lyric. Generally, really good album. I don't know why I put Run the Jewels 4. I think it's because I listened to it quite recently, and also because it was quite a while from Run the Jewels 3 to 4, and it felt like 4 was almost a new era. And at the time, I didn't like that new era, but now I really, really, really do. We're gonna speed through a few of these last ones because we're really starting to run for time. So Akala, they're meant to be a black metal band, but I don't hear black metal in them really. The production's too tight and smooth, and a lot of the sounds are a bit too clean. So I don't quite understand why they've got a black label moniker to them. But anyway, it's adjacent to that general sound. Very atmospheric metal with lots of fun going on. I've picked this album because it's the only one they did that came out in the 2010s, but it's a much slower and more atmospheric album than what they tend to do. Dark Matter Gods is a beautiful song. I don't have much to say with this album, so let's move on because we are running for time, as I've said. Now, Motorpsycho is a really interesting sort of prog rock sort of outfit from Norway. They are quite a large band in that they've been going on since the very early 90s or late 80s, and they have not let up with their discography, not once. They have something like 30 albums, not counting random stuff under other names and soundtracks and little EPs and unofficial releases and live things and all this, that, and the other. And a lot of their albums tend to be double albums as well. And they've got trilogies, and they've got little like albums that have stories that interlink with one another and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really satisfying music. Especially because all of it is so well produced, well executed, and polished and really tight. Everything feels like it was designed with a purpose, and they just keep coming out with more and more of it. And it feels like they never run out of ideas, and I really don't know how they do that. This album, the reason that this one's gotten on in particular is because it has what's called the Knox Suite. I call it the Knox Suite. It's this 40-minute song that's made up of 5 parts with a lot of various driving beats, but it kind of takes that driving jam, psychedelic, krautrock kind of thing, combines it with the progressions that come from something like Pink Floyd's Echoes or something like that, and it manages to combine it into this really long-form suite of music that feels very cohesive and from beginning to end, despite being so long, and exploring every nook and cranny and every untapped corner along the way. And then alongside that, you've got smaller, sweeter tracks like A Little Light, or I think it's Same Old Rock. I can't remember. No, it's Delusion, isn't it? That's the slower one. And then you've also got, just your standard 8-minute rock, prog kind of things as well. Just a general all-around great album. The first time I heard it, I was stripping paint. And it was a really good album to strip paint to. Similarly, an album that would also be quite good to strip paint to is Hypnos 69. Don't like the band name. I hate the band name because it means that this is one of my favourite bands. And I can't say that because, what's one of your favourite bands, Josh? Hypnos 69. What's that? It's a psychedelic prog rock band. Oh. Can't say it. Why have they called themselves that? Knobheads. Really irritates me that they've done that, because this has Requiem for a Dying Creed, and it has The Great Work, and it has My Journey to the Stars on it. And those 3 songs, if you just had an album with just those 3 songs on it, it would be the best album ever made, bar none. They've got more songs on it, so it kind of isn't, and I don't like as much, like An Aerial Architect I don't think is amazing, The Empty Hourglass. It's not that I don't think that they're good, I think they're good songs, and I've enjoyed listening to the full album as a collective experience, but I feel like if this was a 45-minute album, it would be the best album ever made. It really, truly would, because it's got the 2 18-minute tracks, Requiem for a Dying Creed and The Great Work, both tackle the format of a long-form song in very different ways. Requiem is a bit more of a medley of various riffs and ideas that it interchanges and experiments with, and The Great Work is more of a slow, long-form crescendo that then pays off in a slower, more almost post-rock kind of way. Yeah, really, really love this album. You sort of see the album cover and you think it's going to be this really stripped back, quite basic garage psychedelic kind of album, and it's really not. It's quite a tight progressive rock album. It really, truly is, and it's really good. I don't quite love the album. I like the album art, but I don't like listening to the music while looking at the album art, because it feels like she's looking at me. I have that with a lot of things, like this. I don't like the moon staring at me, and shut up. In Stephen Wilson's The Raven That Refused to Sing. Probably the most famous sort of prog rock album of the 2010s. Really good album. I had a little thing, I don't know, I don't love Stephen Wilson's solo work. I like it. I've never super gotten into it. The reason it's made this list is just because it is really popular and it's really quite something, and I do respect it, and I really like, trying to remember what the songs are. Drive Home, I really like Drive Home. Luminal is a song I respect but I don't love. I'm just trying to find the track list. Give me the bastard in track list, because it's not in the description. None of you? None of you? You're all useless. Okay. Anyway, It's got Drive Home on it. The Raven That Refused to Sing, the title track, is really good. And the music videos for them are really, really sweet as well. I'm not going to show you them because I'm worried about the copyright thing. We're going to rush through a couple. So Mike Oldfield's Return to Omadorn, sequel to his 70s album. The reason that he's so far down the list and I want to just cover him quickly is because he's already a famous musician. He's already made his name, and he had his golden age in the 70s and the 80s. Or people will say that he went to shit in the 80s, but I would disagree with that because he released To France in the 80s and Poison Arrows and other songs like that. So he did a good job, point being. David Bowie, similar sort of story, but come on, Black Star. Personally, Black Star is my favourite David Bowie album. I mean, the title track, it's got Lazarus on it, it's got I Can't Give Everything Away on it, it's got so much good stuff on it. And what I find really interesting about it is how David Bowie is constantly pushing the boundaries and constantly trying new things. I mean, he made a semi-jungle album with Earthling. And I like it. I like I'm Afraid of Americans and the one about Tibet and stuff like that. It's cool. It's the fact that he did those explorations inspires me personally. Fear Inoculum. I don't know why I put that on there because it's not that good, but it's got Pneuma on it, which I like. I like Pneuma, and I think the final song that I'm actually going to proper talk about is Camera Radiate. Now this is a krautrock outfit, or maybe they're not called krautrock because apparently krautrock is about a specific era of music rather than a specific sound. And because this band aren't from that particular era and that scene, it's not technically krautrock music, but it's maybe krautrock inspired. But anyway, it makes use of a lot of motorik driving drum beats and a lot of soundscapes and a lot of long form, very simplistic 1-2 chord jams. It starts with a track called E-Go, which is this really, really satisfying, quite drony thing that feels like it's maybe in B minor or something like that. Probably totally wrong, but it does a beautiful job. It's quite a downer kind of. I can't quite don't know how to describe it sort of thing, but it's just really nice. Oh, here you are. I'll play you a couple seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you heard the drums as well. The drums are really something else. It's then followed up by a track called Villon, which takes things in a much slower and more somber sort of direction, with 2 halves to it. An intro half and then a payoff half that does this really interesting little sort of drum thing combined with this melody. I don't quite know how to describe it. And then Ausland is almost like the happy equivalent to E-Go. Again, a hypnotic motorik driving beat, but with a bit more of a wah, wah, wah sort of thing rather than a da, da, da sort of thing to it. And then I don't necessarily love the second half of the album as much. After Lynch, which is a very long, slow, crescendo-y kind of atmospheric, almost ambient piece, which is really interesting on its own, but I feel like the payoff that it has in songs like Utopia Is and RFID and Soldat and Morgan, it just doesn't quite do it for me. But the first half of this album is really something else, and I really do recommend that you listen to Camera and listen to all of these songs and take some time to have a look at this playlist that I've made. And if you have any recommendations for more music, particularly music that's along these same genre lines, please put it in the put it in the comments. And I will add it to this playlist, and we can grow this playlist to maybe like 100 albums, because I want people to understand that we are in one of the best eras for music at this very moment. We are living in a time when you can find whatever the hell you want, almost tailored directly to you. Almost, obviously not, because it's designed to be accessible to many people. I don't mean in terms of accessible music, I mean in terms of how music is literally. A band that wants to set out to make a krautrock album or whatever will make one in their own style and their own sound, and then people will find what they like in it, and that's the part of the beauty of music and finding new music. And I think the internet has made it so much easier to actually find this kind of stuff that I'm just really happy that we live in a time where I can actually do that, and I can find these new things. And Sure, maybe the cultural zeitgeist has been split and everyone now lives in their own little scenes, but those scenes overlap and they have combinations, and it's not like everyone is just in one scene, everyone's in multiple scenes, and that's where part of the magic can come in, because you just try and find someone that has as many of those scenes that overlaps with you, and maybe you work with them, or you just engage with music with them, and you just, you know, bond over music with them, and I think you can make something really fascinating out of that, even just if it's a connection and a friend. Even if it's, you know, over the internet, or preferably it'd be in real life. You know, when you find someone and they're referencing bands that you felt like only you'd heard of before then, it's a really satisfying feeling, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to head off. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Please recommend some albums, and let's talk about the 2010s and the 2020s and the future of music in general, because I think that we're on a good trajectory. Yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.